Hello and welcome back to Serving Up. Today I'm joined by Chris Beaumont, commentator, writer and founder of the World Pickleball Magazine, and also Serving Up's first ever pickleball guest. We get into how pickleball is growing in the UK and around the world and why it's proving so accessible, and also what the sport needs to get right as it grows, how media and storytelling and personality could all play a huge role in its future as well. Before we get into it with Chris, I'd like to thank our sponsors, ACC Leisure, who are helping secure the future of leisure across the UK, and to Oliver UK, racket pioneers since 1938. Yeah, this is a really interesting conversation with Chris and one of the fastest growing racket sports around. So let's get into it with Chris. Good afternoon, Chris. You well?
Very well, sure. Nice to meet you, my friend.
Yes, nice to meet you too. I said, well, we've been trying to do this for quite some time, haven't we?
Yeah, a ridiculous amount of time, to be fair. I hope it's going to be worth the wait from your point of view, not so much from my point of view.
Yes, no, it definitely will be. So you're going to be our first pickleball guest. We've had squash, we've had badminton, we've had paddle, but nice to get somebody from pickleball, which is really weird because I've got Wales Pickleball is based literally 20 minutes down the road from me.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I don't know if I've told you this in our conversation before, but I've moved to Anglesey. So I'm now actually firmly placed within the Welsh pickleball structure. Yep. We played our first Welsh National Club Pickleball League match last Monday.
I will definitely see you in person then, because so you'll go down to Holyhead. This conversation's going totally off now, but
yeah, this is great stuff.
So you'll be going to Holyhead with Sue and Paul.
Yeah. So actually, Holyhead is where I'm playing most of it at the moment. We play, well, that's where the league matches have taken place so far. We have a Wednesday and a Friday session where, play with a few of the Welsh national squad, which always sounds nice when you throw that out there. Then there's a few other sort of sessions in the evenings on Anglesey. One of the great things about moving here, in all seriousness, although it's a beautiful place in the world, is that there's pickleball pretty much every single day of the week as well if I want it. So which is very cool.
Yeah, Venus to Sue and the two Pauls, they've grown it exceptionally well, and they are really, because not just Holyhead, it's Llangefni as well, isn't it? That's really busy.
Yeah, no, I mean all over the island there's a good level of pickleball being played as well, which was, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying that was the main reason we moved here, but it certainly gave it as a good reason to get it right at the top of the list. Yeah.
Is it close to Holyhead you've moved to?
We live midway down the east side of the island, just sort of near Benlec.
Oh, yes. I know where you are. Yeah, on the other side.
Yeah. So yourself then? Whereabouts?
I'm literally back, almost bang in the middle of Anglesey in Llangefni.
Are you really?
Yeah.
We could have done this face to face, Sean. We could be sitting there having a coffee.
You wouldn't say that when you see the mess my kids leave in the house.
Okay, fair enough.
That's awesome. Well, I think when we first spoke, when did you move to Anglesey?
I must have been. It was back end of November, so maybe we just didn't get onto locations. Maybe that wasn't.
No, I don't think we did. Well, say so. Well, when we do our next one, we could do it in person. There's a few sort of podcast places sort of popping up.
This is bonkers. We are both literally on Anglesey, and we're going to be talking about pickleball on just a completely random racket sport connection. I mean, the chance.
It's a small world, though, isn't it?
It is really incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
Very, very, very small world. Well, like I said, you're the first pickleball guest. It's obviously like paddle sort of now starting to really pick up momentum. How would you sort of describe pickleball to anybody listening to this who has no idea what it is?
Wow, what a question. It's a racket stroke paddle sport that somehow has decided to take bits of tennis, table tennis, badminton, squash, pretty much anything where you hit something, where you hit a ball with something in your hand. There's elements of all that in there, and they've stuck it on a badminton size court, and they decided for some reason to call it pickleball in an attempt to put everyone that could potentially play it off it, because it's got a daft name, quite frankly.
I thought it was named after the creator's dog.
Yeah, there's many sort of myths around how it did actually get the name and stuff. But yeah, I buy into the dog one, because I've got dogs and I think I love dogs, and let's give the dog story, the mileage. I think it probably was the case that Pickles, the dog, kept nicking the ball, and they decided to call it after that.
Yeah, probably. But you've done more, but before, when you're still doing it now, you were mainly doing football, weren't you?
Yeah, so my background for about the last 10 years in terms of work was football media, football scouting, football, all kinds of things, really. A lot of it online, a lot of it virtual. And as a sport growing up, I mean, like most kids, when I was a kid my age, we had, I mean, PE was still a thing in school. So we had tennis, we had badminton, we had cricket, I didn't really like rugby, but we did do rugby. We had football. We had every single staple sport was part of our curriculum. So we got to try everything at school. And I played a bit of tennis as a kid until I was about 15 and massively fell out of love with it because I kept getting whooped. And then football was my main sport as a kid. Then I started playing cricket throughout my adult life as well. So it's been football and cricket pretty much since late teens through to it was early 40s. I still play cricket now. But then, yeah, just stumbled across this random sport that got rid of all the bits I hated about tennis and left in all the bits I liked, which was volleying and quick reactions and the fun bits that I think I enjoyed doubles tennis more than I enjoyed singles tennis as a sort of like as a teenager. So this certainly kept in more of the bits that I did enjoy. And it was one of those sports that after I'd hit a few things in my first ever session, thought, yeah, I could see myself really getting hooked on this.
Yeah, because you see, it's mainly doubles that gets played in pickleball, isn't it, rather than the singles?
Yeah, but I mean, doubles is definitely the more popular bit because singles, although it's on a small court, is brutal. It is so fast and really physical that a lot of people don't love singles. I think purely for those reasons. I play singles and I have a love-hate relationship with it. When it's going well, I absolutely love it, and when it's not going well, I wonder why I'm putting my body through the pain threshold to try and run around. But no, doubles is the much more popular version of the two games, and singles is almost like a different sport in pickleball in itself because the tactics are totally different to how you would play in doubles.
And it's got a very unique scoring system as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, just I mean, if the name wasn't going to put people off, what they then thought they would do is they'd make the scoring system almost impossible for beginners to pick up as well. It was almost like the founders were trying to keep it as a game that would only be played in their backyard and make it absolutely of zero interest to the rest of the world. But yeah, the scoring system is quite different as well. So you have if it's doubles, you have two servers, you both get a go to serve, and you can only win a point on your serve. And but at the start of the game, you only get one serve and all kinds of other really random stuff. I think like a lot of the racket sports over the years that did have a more complex scoring system, they went to rally scoring in the end. And I think pickleball will probably stay with the two versions because you do play rally scoring sometimes depending on the event. But if they stay with the traditional scoring system, I think that will be mainly because it is the original one and it's traditional and it fits into the quirkiness of the game in its own bizarre way.
Think they might maybe meet somewhere in the middle and make something new again with its
maybe. I mean, we are seeing in the sport that rules do evolve a little bit and things are changing. I think as the game is starting to get a little bit more mainstream, it is becoming a little bit more professional to a certain extent. They will start having thoughts around, well, okay, how do we make this even more easy for spectators to understand? And how do we make it more of a TV product, maybe, rather than it just being like a backyard game and things like that? So I think we've seen that in so many sports, haven't we, that things do evolve. And once you think about, well, how do you make it a broadcast package and money starts to get involved and everything, then things do need to be addressed if that becomes a priority, I guess. So yeah, I think there will be, whether it becomes a hybrid of the two, who knows? Yeah, I think that it could be one of the many things that they look at in the sport as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like broadcast and all that, obviously with it being on a badminton court, they've already got that structure and familiarity of, well, what works well for badminton. This is sort of the same dimensions. I imagine they're pinching quite a bit from that.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's important to point out the one difference on a badminton court is what we call the non-volley zone line.
Yeah, the kitchen, isn't it?
And then the kitchen, because I mean, look, we if we want to complicate it even more, let's just randomly call a part of the court the kitchen. For no obvious reason. So you got the non-volley zone line, which, as the name would suggest, if you go in there, you can't take the ball out of the air, you have to let it bounce. But that's just slightly further back from a traditional badminton line near the net. So it makes that non-volley zone area a little bit bigger to what it would be on a standard badminton court. And although that feels like a very fractional distance when you're looking at the court, in terms of the geometry of a pickleball court, actually it feels like a really big space when you're playing soft shots on a properly marked out pickleball court. It feels like you've got so much more room than if you're on a badminton court.
And now, obviously, you do the World Pickleball Magazine, but if we start off focusing on just the UK first, how do you think pickleball currently sits in the UK in terms of, like, is it still in this growth phase, beginner phase, or is it sort of now maturing?
I think it depends where in the UK you are. I mean, when you go to the south of England, there's a bit more of a stronghold or a more mature market there. And what I mean by that, it's not the age of the people playing; it's just they've been playing it longer. So it felt like it started down south probably 12 years ago, maybe even a little bit earlier than that, and then just got that regularity going. So you've got players down there who have been playing for a decade, and you can tell because they've just got levels of experience that newer players certainly won't get until they've got similar miles on the clock. I started playing in 2024, and there was certainly clubs and places in the pockets in the UK that had a good pickleball scene as well then. But since then, it's growing like wildfire. You're seeing new clubs pop up all the time. There weren't too many tournaments back in 2024 either. You had the English Nationals, English Open. You had a few sort of regional tournaments that were happening as well. A lot of these were happening in leisure centres and things like that. But now, and there might have been only one a month or even, not even that maybe. Now, when you start looking at tournament calendars, the country's able to cater for maybe 3 or 4 relatively sizable events happening on the same weekend, and they're all selling out and stuff. So you've gone from the days of maybe, like, if somebody was brave enough to put a tournament on, you're keeping your fingers crossed that you might get 100 people come and enter. But now you're in a situation where you've got, as I say, 3 or 4 or 5 maybe on the same weekend, and they're all getting really good numbers, which just shows the not just the amount of people playing at a recreational level now, the amount of people then that want to travel a little bit, pay a registration fee, and put themselves through the pain of playing in a tournament, which, I mean, typically ends up in defeat for most people, but people keep coming back and want to keep playing, which is awesome.
I say you don't just do like regular tournaments either, do you? I remember Wales Pickleball hosting they called a festival where people got like the different color bands to show their ability, and it was just
that's only the tournaments. I mean, there's festivals and tournavals all over the place now as well, where you just literally sign up and you're going for an all-day play session, really, where you get bracketed with people of your own ability. You might play up, you might play down a little bit, and it all mixes around, and great opportunity to play against players that you're not having a hit with every single week and all that side of it. And there's loads of those happening up and down the country as well. One of the interesting things about doing the World Pickleball Magazine, and we started that back in January last year, is that as the months have gone on, you just realize how many more things are happening in the UK alone on a monthly basis that you're trying to report on and things. And it's the growth is crazy. You go to Scotland, and the way that's grown in the same amount of time is off the charts, and obviously Wales as well. It's just, there's more and more people playing, and of course Anglesey, I think, has been one of the better structured clubs for a period of time, but there's still a ridiculous amount of people that play on Anglesey, given the population size of Anglesey isn't crazy big. I mean, I'd love to know what the percentage of people are that actually do play pickleball in Anglesey, because I think it would be a surprising number. And so on and so forth. It's growing crazy. I mean, in Northern Ireland, there's some really good players playing in Northern Ireland, and there's a really good club recreational scene there as well. It's phenomenal.
Do you think that as a sort of time goes on and we start getting a bit more like a professional series tour and worldwide, I mean, is there a dominant country right now? And do you think the UK could sort of break into it?
Well, I mean, USA is still the spiritual home and probably actually professional home of the world. And I think that's still where players attain to they want to reach. They know if they can get to the point where they're going to the US and they're competing, then they have reached the pinnacle of their skill level. But will that always be the case? Probably not, I would say. I mean, the growth in Asia in the last year is, I mean, it's so fast. I was interviewing somebody myself on our podcast last week who was playing out in Vietnam a few weeks ago. And he said that they've even got people now who don't play the game who are interested in what's happening in the pickleball sport, and it's overtaken football as a fandom type sport. Where so like the Vietnamese pickleball players, they've got their posters up on the billboard. They're in the gossip columns. They are becoming celebrities in Vietnam through pickleball, and that's just in Vietnam. Then you've got Malaysia, Singapore, China, India. You've got so many different pockets where the sport is exploding, not just from a general everyday play point of view, but the infrastructure, the finances going in, all kinds of things. So other areas are absolutely catching up. Europe probably lags behind, I would say, in terms of professional structures. There are some tours now in Europe which are cool, and there's prize money being offered and this, that, and the other. But I think it's still fair to say at the moment, if you're a top European player, you're working out how you can make that jump from making some money on the European tour and maybe getting into Asia and making more money on the Asian tour, and then how would you get into the American competitions and be competitive there and maybe pick up prize money on the American tour. It's still, because it's still so new from a professional standpoint, it is quite fragmented, and there isn't one global tour. There's not even one governing body yet. There's pockets of it, but it's interesting to watch those pockets and try and predict which ones are going to be the ones that do still exist in 18 months time, or who's currently in the lead, or where these other ones lower down fit in, and all that side of it as well, because it's a new growth sport, and every sport will have gone through this in its own timeline. Football in the early days will have had the first ever World Cup, the first ever European Championships, the first ever league structure, and then there would have been break-off things, and eventually there was a governing body, and so on and so on and so on.
How far away do you think that is on a global level?
That's a really difficult one to say, and without going too deep into the politics of it, at the moment there are two recognised global governing bodies, and they are in talks at the moment to merge and become one. Which, if that can be done in a way where everybody's happy, that would be an absolutely fantastic thing for the sport, and it will open up so many more different things like Olympic pathways and continental structures and all the things that you associate with other more mature sports. Whether that happens in the next 6 months, next 6 years, absolutely nobody knows at this stage. But they are saying they are talking to each other for that single governing body status at the moment. In terms then of there being one overall global tour, so to speak, I genuinely don't know, because you got something in America called the PPA Tour. And then you've got another tour, a rival tour called the APP Tour. Just take the same letters and jumble them up, and we might have the PAP Tour as a third one at some point in the future. But they're two different tours, and PPA is probably considered like the Premier League one, if we were to use football terminology, and maybe APP is Championship. But there's really good reasons for players to play on the APP Tour ahead of the PPA, which is very restrictive, that once you're contracted there, you can only play in their sanctioned events. You can't be seen on a pickleball court anywhere else in the world. Whereas if you're an APP player, you can do that. You can go and play a little bit in Asia. If you fancy a trip to Australia and you want to play some tournaments there whilst you're there, you can do that as well, and so on and so on and so forth. So there are lots of moving parts, lots of bits of dynamics and stuff. And even in Europe, we've got the RTA tour, we've got the Spanish Pro Pickle Tour, we've got this tour, that tour, a new one has appeared last weekend, Top Series, and all these people trying to break into it for their own various different motivations. Some of it is purely we want to put something good on for players. Something is more, yeah, can we make some money out of this? And like all sports at the start, lots of different people with lots of different motivations working out which part of the pie they're going after.
But in terms of sort of a media and a storytelling, like a magazine, there wasn't really anybody until you came along, was there?
Oh, there was, like all these things, there was, but it was so US centric, which makes perfect sense.
It makes sense, but it wasn't a worldview like how you how you've taken your magazine.
Exactly. So yeah, of course, we don't ignore the fact that US pickleball exists because it is so much. They feed so much of the narrative anyway, but we also wanted to tell the story about some great community projects in Africa. We wanted to report on the Australian tournaments. The reason I went down this road was because when I first got into pickleball and started really falling in love with it, I wanted to know what else was happening. And there was no single place that you could go to and get all these stories on one website or in one newspaper or in one magazine. You really had to work hard to find the stories. And it reminded me of when I was a kid growing up loving football before the internet existed. You had a similar challenge. And the only way we as kids could find out what was going on elsewhere was through the magazine World Soccer, which would tell you about the next Pele coming up in Brazil, would tell you about what happened over here, who the next African wonder kid was going to be, etc., etc. So I thought, okay, well, let's try and replicate that in pickleball. So yeah, Pickleball magazine existed. We just stuck the word world in front of our version of it. And it kind of just does what it says on the tin. We cover things from a professional level all the way down to if there's a really nice grassroots story in wherever it is in the world, we'll try and cover that as well. And because we've got collaborators on all 5 continents, we've got some good ears to the ground now, and we do pick up things that other people won't be talking about on a daily basis, which is cool.
Must be extremely difficult to sort of navigate all the countries, the continents, the time zones. I know you've got, it only comes out every month, so it's not like they've rushed to a daily or weekly deadline, but it still must be a hell of a challenge.
Well, I mean, we are doing daily stuff as well on the website.
On the website, yeah.
Magazine.com. We do try and cover daily news, and that is typically more news reporting than let's go into a nice long feature article type thing, which is what we try and do in the magazines. We do try and give that extra level on the magazine side of it. So the daily stuff, yeah, is challenging, absolutely, trying to keep on top of it. Because even now, like there was a tournament, the biggest tournament in Australia was happening 2 weekends ago, and it was really hard work to find out actually who won, what the story. I mean, having to put the work in to actually get it so we can tell people, and the tournament aren't really doing it particularly well themselves. So pickleball has got a long way to go in many ways to make information easier for people to find. So we do try and do that for them. But then on the monthly side of it, yeah, that is a time consuming process because there is so much content. I think our magazine in the last 12 months has averaged 150 pages each month. And there's no adverts in it yet either. I mean, goodness knows how big it's going to be once we finally start flogging adverts to companies that should be sponsoring and sort of putting money into it because it goes out to such a large audience. But yeah, it's from an editorial point of view, it's a bit of a push at the end of each month to get it ready for publishing day.
And how did you go about building that network of people then?
Well, I think the pink shorts helped when I first started playing. I don't know what it was, but it turns out to be one of the best marketing strategies I ever came up with. I decided that I was going to wear pink shorts for no reason. There was no real foresight in it. So it's like, I thought I like pink shorts, and people started remembering who I was. And then so I started having conversations with people. And then so when it then came to, oh look, do you fancy doing this? Do you fancy doing that? It was easier to do that. Then on a global scale of it got easier because people now know about the magazine far more than they did on the first edition. I think the first edition was pretty much all UK based writers plus Gordon in Australia, who I'd made friends with after the World Pickleball League in India, sort of January 2025. But then once we started doing this, it was easy to get more people in because, like, oh yeah, well, I'm in Africa. I'd like to tell you about the African stuff. I'm in Canada. Can I write about the Canadian League? And people started wanting to get their stories into the magazine because there are so many good stories out there that need to be told.
So I take it out you probably got people coming to you saying, I know this club that have got a really great story.
Yeah.
Can I write it for you?
Yeah,
Or could you write about it? Or
absolutely a lot more like that now, which is really good. It is really, really good. We've also started connecting with as many of the federations as we can as well, because one of the things I'd love this magazine and this website to be in 10 years time is something that somebody goes to going, I love pickleball. I've just been playing it 3 months. I'd love to know what it was like back in 2025. And then we've got this archive of resource and a timeline where people can go back and find out what the game was like back then, what the stories were then. I still love picking up a World Soccer magazine from like the mid-70s and reading it just to find out what was happening in that month of that year back in many, many, many decades ago, because the old stories can be really inspiring in many ways. So we're trying to do it from that point of view. By hooking up with the federations, it gives them the opportunity to put down in writing some of the great achievements they've made as a federation. Because don't forget, a lot of these federations still to this day are being run by volunteers who fell in love with the game, realized that it needed a bit of structure if it was going to take root in their country, ended up being the people responsible for that, and they don't really get trumpeted too often. So this is a good way for them to get their pioneering stories out to the global public as well. And of course, hopefully then it encourages them to share the magazine and get it out to people, and hopefully gets a few more eyeballs on our distribution list, which will help us continue to hopefully fund it properly as time goes on and grow, and for it to truly become a legacy in years to come.
You mentioned obviously your first one was only come out last year. How many people have you got now? How many did the last month get downloaded in for Marches?
Oh, look, if every single distribution partner does what they agreed to do when we said, yeah, look, let's do this, then it should go out to over 150,000 pickleball players a month. Now, do they all do that every single month? That's the bit that's on that long list of things to keep monitoring and to keep working on. So, but I mean, yeah, it does go out to a lot of people now, and I would like that to be a lot more. The big overall sort of great dream of it is that one day every single registered pickleball player in the world will get this magazine sent to them at the start on release day. And then they get the opportunity to go and read it if they want to. And that might be the free version. That might be a slightly more premium version in months to come or years to come, whatever it is. But it will be distributed officially to the vast amount of registered pickleball players in the world. And hopefully some of them that aren't registered as well.
Yes, that sounds like a logistical nightmare to get that worldwide on the same day. But
then like it's digital, mate. Because if it was print, like in the old days when there used to be you get on the train and then you pick up the latest free thing. The amount of time and effort and money that used to be spent on creating print versions of stuff that you give away for free. Thank goodness, all I've got to do is put it in a nice design package and then hopefully hit email and it goes to people, because that does make it less of a logistical nightmare. But yes, it is still a logistical nightmare.
So have you got a favorite story or one that really sticks out to you that you've done recently?
Oh, that is a very
one that you'd like to share to the masses, maybe they haven't heard about pickleball, and that really emphasizes the good work and the social aspect.
Yeah, I tell you what, there's not a story in particular, but the ones that I personally really enjoy reading in the magazine are the ones from Africa. There is so much good grassroots work that is happening in Africa. And what I love about what they're doing there is that they are very much using the sport as a vehicle to improve people's lives. Whereas in the UK, it's a bit of a sweeping statement, but the vast majority of people that are playing pickleball initially in the UK are set in life and are doing it as something to do to enhance what is already their life. And that's not for 1 minute suggesting every single pickleball player is completely set up, happy as Larry, hasn't got any issues, isn't using the game to get away from the stress of work or retirement or whatever. But it's a bit different to it being taken into a school to empower young African ladies to have a voice and confidence and believe that there is something more to life than maybe what they've been told so far. And they're the stories that really make me go, wow, this sport genuinely can be used for really, really good things. Because we see these stories on a monthly basis. But then you go into like the great travel stories people come up with from pickleball as well. I mean, because there are courts in so many beautiful parts of the world, when somebody sends in like a travel blog of what they've done, when they've been to Australia and they've gone around this network and met all these wonderful people, that's really cool as well. And I have to say that I do enjoy those stories more personally than that. Oh, by the way, Annalie Waters won another Triple Crown at the PPA event last weekend, because let's be honest, we kind of know that's coming.
Yeah. Is there, other than like having those the vehicles to drive other things, is there anything else that surprised you, either about the players or brands or how pickleball is delivered in a country since you've been doing the magazine?
Well, I think one thing I really love about pickleball as a sport at the moment, and this could well change as years go on or as time goes on, is how accessible the players tend to be. Apart from maybe the absolute elite tiny handful, you can actually get hold of like most of the other people for a conversation. And coming from football, that's like nigh on impossible. You've got to have serious connections to be able to get a discreet conversation with anybody at a professional level. And in pickleball, it's so much easier. I mean, like last month, the 72nd seed in the men's singles got through to the semi-finals of the PPA event in the men's. Matthew Barlow, great story. I happen to be friends with Matthew on Facebook. I realised as I searched for his name, he must have accepted it when I was spamming anybody in pickleball to get a connection request. Dropped him a message on the day of his semi-final saying, "Mate, what a story! Fancy coming on the podcast next week?" And he was like, "Yeah, definitely, let's do it." And like, if you did that to, I don't know, one of the Arsenal players who played in the League Cup final yesterday and didn't cover themselves in glory, then you're not going to get such a quick turnaround. And these players talk honestly as well. They're not media trained in the sense of they won't say something that's interesting. So the conversations on the podcast tend to be quite good because you are getting an honest appraisal from somebody about the sport and how they play and what they like and what they don't like and all that.
Yeah, not just a trained media answer, or if you sort of take out the accent, it could be attributed to any player.
Absolutely. Though in the player's defense, half the time, if you're being asked yet again, you've just won the League Cup, how do you feel? You're not going to get the best answer from that sort of question either, are you? So you know what I mean? I mean, they are a lot more media trained.
But you are still doing football commentating as well, aren't you?
Yeah. No, I still do football commentary, and that actually came from pickleball. To be perfectly honest with you, I hadn't done the commentary myself in the past. When lockdown kicked in, there was an app that allowed you to sync your commentary with the pictures on the TV screen. Can't remember what it was called, but it was a new thing in American sport which they just brought into football. And my media company were getting a little bit bored of the normal everyday football commentary that existed, and didn't find it particularly intelligent, particularly interesting. It was cliche after cliche after cliche. There's only been so many times I can hear Steve McManaman say something blindingly obvious without watching Richie Bernot turn in his cricketing grave because he was the best commentator that ever lived. And we thought, okay, well, we're a tactical analysis type football outfit, so we'll do a slightly more intelligent version of the commentary along that. But I was coordinating that more than doing it myself. When I started playing pickleball at the English Open in 2024, they had a commentators course. I thought, that looks like fun. Be a good way to meet more people and network and this, that, and the other. And I might enjoy it because I'd done podcasts, I'd done that kind of stuff already. I went along to it and then commentated on quite a few pickleball events since then, but then thought, well, I love football, so is there a chance I could maybe get some football commentary as well? And I've ended up working for a few of the betting apps now that nowadays every betting app has some kind of live commentary unofficially on there as well. So work for a company as well that does that provides all that. So yeah, I was doing what was I doing yesterday? I did the African Champions League quarterfinal after Dundee United and Celtic in the early afternoon. And then the day before that, I think I was doing a German game and an Italian game, a Bundesliga and Serie A. So you do get some variety when you're doing commentary from home. That's for sure.
Yes, just a bit. I mean, it's still have to fly out at least, so that's
yeah.
Nice.
I mean, look, if somebody wants to fly me out to the World Cup to commentate on that, I like doing it from the office at home, but there'll be some places that wouldn't. Certainly, as we get nearer the end of the season, I don't think it'd be too bad going out to some of the games. Maybe not Newcastle, Sunderland in the middle of December on a Thursday night. That wouldn't sound as appealing, maybe. But
California in the middle of the World Cup, or New York, or
I mean, it's not going to be hotter than commentating on the Pickleball European Championships in Rome last September under a plastic marquee. That's about as hot as it's ever been doing anything media related. So
yeah, I dread to think how hot that would have been. So how does it differ? How much does it differ when you're commentating? Because they're obviously two vastly different sports. You're probably going to pick two completely different sports. How much does it differ for you?
It's really interesting because, again, within all that, there's different styles of commentating you're doing. The football commentary that I do is radio style on my own. So I haven't got anyone to bounce off. So it is literally me for the 90, 100, 105, whatever it is, minutes talking. And you try and get it into a flow. You try and do it. And when you're doing it off tube on a laptop screen, and you've got a certain quality of feed coming in, sometimes it can be quite tricky to quickly identify who the player is and what they're doing and this, that, and the other. So it's not always really easy to portray to the level that you would want to do. Pickleball, there's only 4 people on court, or maybe 2 people on court, so that side of it's a lot easier, of course. But then then what we try and do is not really tell people exactly what they can see for themselves. So you then have to try and drop in the other bits and try and add something to the pictures that people can see for themselves when they're watching it on a live stream. So they are 2 completely different disciplines. The amount of research that goes into a football commentary compared to the amount of research that goes into the round robin 50 plus 3.5 category in Basingstoke, it's slightly different, but you still got to try and make it as enjoyable as possible for whoever's tuning into it, because you want them to come back.
Well, exactly, yeah. So I want to look ahead now for sort of pickleball's future. I know you've mentioned a couple of times about the magazine, but for pickleball itself, what do you think sort of the next 5 years will entail, and what would success for pickleball look like for you personally? Whether that's the organizations going, yeah, we've all sorted it, we've now got a proper league, we've got a proper World Cup. What would it look like for you for the next 5 years?
That's a really good question. I say this all the time, but it feels like the next 6 months is critical for pickleball, because there are so many things happening again, which are going to dictate how far this sport can go. With no ceilings in place, there are very few reasons why this sport couldn't become an Olympic sport, which is absolutely globally consumed by players, fans, etc., etc., etc. If all the ducks line up in a row at the same time, there's no real reason why that couldn't happen. There's a lot of things to do before we get there, but that should, I suppose, be the ultimate aim if you're looking at it through that lens. Equally, there is no shame in pickleball becoming one of the absolute cult recreational sports that, although, yeah, you're not going to go and potentially win an Olympic gold playing it, you still have a lot of fun. People know what it is when you say, oh yeah, I play pickleball, and it has that sort of feel to it as well. So that would be that. I mean, that has equal, well, maybe not equal value, but that certainly has a massive value itself in it. Over the next 5 years, what does pickleball kind of need to do? Well, I think we will see, just organically, it won't be such a US-centric sport. I think Asia will really sort of grow and maybe even catch up, maybe even overtake in some ways that you look at it in 5 years. In Europe, I think we'll see more facilities opening up. I think we'll see more organizations and more tours starting to try and streamline and work together a little bit to maybe try and create one single European ranking. It might be that the PPA guys from America, which have already got PPA Australia, already got PPA Asia, maybe they will officially really to come in and dominate Europe and have PPA Europe. They're dabbling in a couple of Italian events later this year as well, as probably as a test run, you'd imagine. But I think in that 5-year cycle, I think we'll then maybe start to see quite a bit of a dip, quite a bit of a drop off, quite a bit of sort of negative trend with pickleball as well, because there will be facilities that open and fail. That's just fact of life of business. We're already seeing some of the paddle brands in the US starting to hit a bit of financial difficulty. I mean, Gamma, who are a very historic racket company in the US, they filed for bankruptcy last week, and that's mainly because they gambled so much on pickleball being a huge thing for them, and for whatever reason, I don't know the exact details, it hasn't worked out the way that they once dreamt it possibly could. So I think we'll start to see that the iteration of the business phase come and go there, probably leaning down and then going again. But look, we don't know. Will there be another pickleball that comes along in the next period of time that catches the public attention and springboards even faster? And these are all massive unknowns, really. You look at some. Go on.
No, I was going to say, how do you think media platforms such as your magazine are going to help sort of shape that?
Well, I mean, look, that is the absolute $1 million question, Sean, because at the moment, pickleball is a sport that lots and lots of people play and really enjoy playing, but they have got minimal interest in clicking on a bit of content, buying a magazine, going to a YouTube channel and reading, watching, listening to something about the sport. And that is the big disconnect at the moment. Whereas something like football has way more people that consume it rather than actually play it, even at an absolute Sunday league amateur level. So many more people are into football who don't actually play it. At the moment, pickleball is a sport where way more people play it than have interest in consuming it or being a fan of a player or a team or any of that side of it. And that will never shift. That will never switch completely. I don't think it. Apparently, it's starting to do so in Vietnam, but I don't think it would do in Europe. But the gap might close a little bit more. That's going to be the make or break for content creation companies, media houses. And the media needs to be a little bit more varied out there than this is how you go from being a 3.0 to a 3.5. The world doesn't need more coaching videos. There's enough of them out there already by so many good people that I don't think there needs to be more. What would be really good is somehow we can find a way where we can get people interested in the stories, the people. So how can media do this? We need to be better at telling the stories of the players. We need to be better about creating the profiles and the narratives and the rivalries and and we need to, as a media collective, find a way of making pickleball a little bit more entertainment and a little bit less sport without losing the integrity of the sport.
Would you say that's the integrity is the most important thing to protect as it grows, or is there something that's even more important to protect than that?
That's a good question. Probably a little bit of both. In that growth phase, because look, I'll give you an example. Personally, I feel there is too much live pickleball being streamed worldwide at the moment. And there's because it's so easy to stream anything now. You can have Gladys and Doris, if they've got their phone, they can be live streaming their Wednesday night hit with somebody if they're really inclined to. And it's making scarcity quite scarce, I suppose. It's just so easy to consume stuff, and it's making then the really big events not feel like really big events, because let's be honest, we just saw these two players and those two players playing another tournament 2 weeks ago over there in the world, and is this one going to be any different? You don't like, it's like footballs. There's too much football on TV nowadays, and it's the same in that sport. How do you get that magical feeling about something when you're seeing it all the time? So in this growth stage, we've got to be really careful that the stuff we put out now might lose these people who are interested in the sport right now. They may never come back. So whilst you're growing the sport, you've got to get that balance right of being honest to the sport as it is, but also not trying to lose the very few early adopters of maybe being interested in pickleball per se rather than just playing. And then you've got to hope that more people might come in, even if you do lose those. And I don't know if anybody's really cracked that bit yet, because you need the exposure, because you want people to know it exists, but you don't want to overexpose, because you might then switch people off because, like, well, I've seen enough of that now, thank you.
And finally, before I've got some quick fire question before I get into that. Once, say now we go in 5 years time and it's pickleball's maybe knocking on the door of whatever the Olympics is in 2036 or 2040, whenever they announce everything.
Yeah.
What would you like the World Pickleball Magazine to sort of be remembered for, sort of, you know, helping that growth? Would it be just providing a narrative? Would it be getting those interesting stories and having people engage with the sport for the first time, or maybe something else?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'd like, by that point, God, it feels like a long way away, doesn't it? But I mean, it does come around. I mean, the 2036 Olympic Games is only a decade away, so that does come round. That does come around pretty quick.
We'll know who it is in a couple of years.
Yeah, no, precisely. But I think it's in India. I don't know if that's been announced, but I thought somebody was saying it was in India. I know 2032 is in Australia, Brisbane, I think. But yeah, anyway, but back to the point. What would I like World Pickleball Magazine to be? Well, I'd like it at that point to be considered the go-to global publication for all things pickleball. If you want to know about any of the aspects of it, that's where it would go. So therefore, by the time it's in the Olympics, I'd like to think that we've got quite an authoritative voice. So like the Olympics might be interested in having us as a media partner for something like that. That would be exactly where we should be by that point, with 10 years worth of growth behind it. And that will be keeping the balance. I think what we have today is the balance as it goes forward and just needs to grow. Telling the professional stories, telling the grassroots stories, that they are the two things. I would never want us to be a media outlet that then only focuses on what the top players are doing and we forget about the other side of it. Equally, I think that we should never be just a grassroots magazine or media house. We should be telling the top stories as well. It's getting that right balance throughout. But what we will never ever be is purely and simply just another outlet that chases the clicks because we're telling you how to do a backhand flick.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we are getting it in squash now. The magazine has sort of changed towards exactly what you've just said, in terms of, rather than just focusing on the pros, it's so important when, you know, the sports, as much as badminton is huge, obviously the profession is nowhere near as like televised as tennis. But when you look at squash, paddle, pickleball and badminton, it's so important for them to talk about everything from the grassroots to the professionals, and not just to focus on one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, squash is a really interesting case, isn't it? Because squash could quite easily become the test case for pickleball in many ways, of where you don't want it to go in the next 20 years. Because I mean, squash, when I was growing up as a kid, squash was, I mean, huge. Absolutely huge. You had the Khans from Pakistan that were winning absolutely everything. They had their own computer games. Like in the early days of computer games, there was Janshir Khan's squash, I think was one of the ones that you could get, and it was in all the clubs and all this, that, and the other. And like you'll know this way more than I do, but so many squash courts now are little spinning class sort of gyms or this, that, and the other, because the demand just isn't there. A guy that I know who I've played pickleball with quite a few times, he's one of the top English squash players for like in the over 60s bracket or something. And I say that almost as like passing away. That's really cool.
Yeah, what's his name?
Richard Millman.
Richard Millman.
I mean, yeah.
I think he's actually. I think I saw a post the other day. He might be the captain for the England's over 60s.
He could well be, and I absolutely didn't mean to say that in such a throwaway manner.
No, I know what you mean.
Amazing, that level of achievement. I can only dream of something like that. And when you stick him on a pickleball court, the guy finds angles that don't exist. I mean, it's ridiculous what he can do with the control of a ball. But he was telling me about how in squash in the 80s, 5 million people were registered players in the UK, give or take. And I think he said, and please correct me if you know a different figure, I think he said it's down to about 450,000, maybe less now in the UK.
Yeah, it's not. It's different people give out different numbers, but I mean, it depends. When you go like Egypt, but there's a club in Egypt that has more juniors than Squash Wales has members.
Wow. Now, is that because now I don't know much about squash, but isn't there a slightly controversial Nick Kyrgios type who plays squash from Egypt? Is that right?
Yeah, he's in Egypt. He currently trains in England, though, but the Egypt don't help him.
So he's not a role model for Egyptian squash as such. He's not attracting kids to play because it's him.
No, it's all trick because because there's a couple of players. So I think the person you mentioned is maybe Asal. He trains a lot in Pontefract up in Yorkshire, with a guy called James Wilstrop, who's very much known as a gentleman of the game. His stepbrother used to coach England. His dad was an exceptionally famous coach, did amazing work. But then there's other players who are controversial, but they're like with Qatar, or it's just. But the thing is, Egypt have like 6 of the top 10 or 5 of the top 10. They've got the numbers, so you know, they could have all had different nationalities, and you know, they'd have had the same ability. But like you say, the squash, how that's changed in. I mean, didn't even have to go like 20 years. Like, even if you just go the 10 years from when I stopped being a junior to now, junior tournaments in just like, I never had to leave Wales to do a junior tournament, and there'd be 120 plus juniors, rather than now, if you were a junior in Wales, you need to go to England for a tournament, because the only Welsh junior tournaments you'll get is the Nationals. This one European event they have to do to be part of the European Squash Federation. And then that's kind of it.
Wow, really?
Rather than 10 years ago, 12 years ago, there was a junior tournament every month in Cardiff, Newport, Swansea, Robina. You know, there was one a month, and you knew, right, September was always Cardiff. You knew the last one was always in the Vale Hotel. Like, you knew where everything was, but you know, times have changed, and it's very much, they've gotten to the Olympics now, and I think they're putting a lot on that. Time will tell. It's a difficult situation because, and this will be something that pickleball will have to sort of look at if they get in the Olympics, which is because England squash were funded by Sport England, but then got into the Olympics, they got Olympic funding, but the Olympic funding for the sport without any medals was less than what they were receiving.
Right. Okay.
And not just that, but it's now going to get spread to Scotland and Wales, because it's now GB squash, which GB squash that didn't exist until a couple of months ago. So,
well, this is quite a recent thing, is it? Squash getting into the Olympics.
Squash going to the Olympics in 2023, I think it was.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But they only created GB squash in the last couple of months.
Wow.
Because you've got to get 3 organizations to agree on it.
Well, similar thing, I suppose, to like getting the governing bodies in pickleball to get around the same table.
And then you've got there's only two people for each gender can represent each country. But obviously we've effectively got 3 governing bodies fighting for the 2 spaces. So we've just had it now with the current best 2 British players is, one is Welsh and one is English. Then sort of the third player is Scottish, but he's either the oldest or close to being the oldest. He's now just announced that he's going to represent Australia.
Right.
And his wife's Australian, and I think they were planning on moving out there anyway. So he'll be eligible for Australia the June before 2028.
Okay.
So that he can play in the Olympics. But it's
interesting because, like, I mean, that's the thing. So much in pickleball is about, Olympics. And I wonder how many people have actually stepped back and gone, well, hang on a minute. What is that actually going to bring us?
Yeah,
Because
and squash did the same. I mean, like I say, if they medal, if it'll probably be either a guy called Joel Macon, who I grew up, or a young player called Jonah Bryant. It'd be one of those. If one of those two can medal, then all of the squash governing bodies will get more money than they've ever had. But they got a medal.
yeah,
If they don't medal, then we're looking at, and we've already had 3 years of less money.
yeah,
You're then looking at an extra 3 to 4 years of less money.
wow,
So, it's a gamble.
yeah,
Squash has gotten in, but I mean, you hope Joel is 6th in the world, Jonah Bryant is 14th, and if people don't switch nationalities, the top, like I said, like 4 of the top 10 are Egyptian.
right.
So
And they can't all play. Yeah, exactly.
they can't all play, and there's
Yeah.
technically 4. There's 2 other English people ahead of Jonah, but they're 35 and 33 at the moment. So they're going to be 37, 35, while Jonah will be like 22, 23. Joel will only be 32, 33. So it's like he's higher. He's higher and younger, so he'll be ahead of them. Then you've got Jonah, who's relentlessly pushing himself and is likely to break into the top 10 soon, let alone before the Olympics.
But how does all this then fit into just the decline of squash numbers over that period of time? Because I mean, as you say, even in the decade, you've gone from that to that. But like in the 80s and early 90s, it was really big, but isn't in comparison now.
A bit of complacency. Like when I took over Anglesey Squash Club in 2018, the club existed since 1972. Never had a proper junior club.
Wow.
So there was never anything feeding through. I set it up in 2018. Obviously, we had COVID, which obviously was annoying. But like, if you look at the clubs now, bar one club in Porthmadog, which has got 2 juniors, who's the children of 2 other people who play.
Yeah.
It's quite sparse when you look at the clubs. Carnarvon have got 2 young girls who could maybe in 2 or 3 years start playing for them, but that's 2 or 3 years away. We are the same. All of our members are all of our juniors are like 10 and under.
Yeah,
so they're a few years away as well. It's just a bit of complacency of not putting in the effort. And I don't know if the pickleball at Anglesey have got a junior club.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean,
it would be that if you don't keep them in.
Yeah. And that's one thing in pickleball that is starting to grow more in the UK, is you are starting to see slightly more organised thought processes around the junior section. Because look, this sounds a really horrible way of putting it, but you look at the demographic of people that are playing pickleball en masse at the moment. Well, in the nicest possible way, some of them might not be around to watch it in the Olympics for the very first time.
No, what you mean.
Put that in the most delicate possible way that I can. And if we're not replacing those people with 2 or 3 juniors each at the bottom, the sport won't grow. It will die away, and this middle section won't necessarily still be wanting to do it then, and so on and so on and so forth. So it's really on trend at the moment. Completely accept that. Complacency mustn't set in, that it will always just continue to grow if the right pathways, if the right structures, if the right foundations aren't in place.
And in fairness to like paddle does have a lot of junior academies, and you've got some big names like Jason the comedian, Jason Manford. He's got his academy, but like they're putting in a lot of work to it. And that's how it's how everything is going to progress, isn't it? Is if you get 10 kids, 2 of them play it maybe as an adult. But you've got to put in the time and the effort to get, but those 2 go away and they set up their own club. It's just building upon that.
Absolutely. And then you look at paddle, and although people go, oh yeah, but paddle it's expensive to put the infrastructure in, it's blah blah blah. Pickleball's got it's a lot easier to get going. It's like, well, yes, it is, but then the benefit of putting the money into the paddle clubs and making them look all shiny and all nice and all this, that, and all the other means people want to go there. I think if you went to your typical like mid-20s person who's got a little bit of time and maybe a little bit of spare cash to be able to do some leisure pursuits, and you go, well, do you want to go and play a paddle sport in a leisure centre with that age range of people? Or do you want to go and play in a brand new, beautifully designed paddle club with people your own age with same interests, and they've got some, you can have some food and you've got this? Then look, you can understand why people are likely to make that choice. And equally, in the same way, would like the early retired group want to go and play with the 22-year-olds in the paddle club? Probably not. People do migrate to what they feel most comfortable with. One of the biggest things for pickleball as a sport is to get the facilities up to that sort of standard in pickleball world, so that people feel like, oh yeah, well, I can go and spend the day there, and it feels like fun, and it's not just lower a badminton net and have a hit in the local leisure centre and annoy the badminton players on the other court because like we're doing this, they're doing that.
Right, I'll give you a quick fire before I let you go then. I'll let you pick any sport, but what's the best live match you've ever watched?
Ooh, it's really, I know, look, I can't choose between these two. It's so close. The 2018 Cricket World Cup final and that Ashes one where Jack Leach and Ben Stokes basically took down the Aussies. I can't remember what year it was, but I think it might be the same year or even the year later, but it was certainly in and around the same period of time. But it was an absolute epic where Jack Leach gets one not out, Stokes gets 100 odd, and Australians couldn't get that last wicket, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, because I mean they were in there for an age, wasn't they?
Oh,
it was a hell of a long time.
I played a lot of cricket, and trust me, it's really annoying when you can't get the number 11 out. But if you are the Australian Test cricket team, if you can't get Jack Leach out in less than half an hour, you don't deserve to win that Test match.
And obviously they didn't.
Yeah.
Is there a pickleball myth you'd like to kill forever?
Yeah, that being young, fit, and mobile gives you a significant advantage. Never, ever, ever underrate the 72-year-old granny waving her paddle around and looking like she is in the wrong place this evening.
Yeah, I always remember not pickleball but table tennis. We went on a family holiday and they had like all these activities and they had a table tennis tournament, and this old Asian woman was wheeled up to the table.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, she play? What? Oh no, she's playing." She like struggles to get up, and they like put the paddle and they grip her fingers around it. And then all of a sudden, you just see,
Brilliant.
And she just destroys everybody to the point where some people are like, "I'm not playing because it's just."
Yeah.
But she was just like, she couldn't move she could move an arm, brilliantly.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
That's amazing. Yeah. No, it's exactly the same in pickleball. I mean, I think every single younger pickleball player's career has to start with the rite of passage by being beaten and humbled by somebody that you just wouldn't possibly imagine could do it to you.
Is there a player or personality in the pickleball world that you think needs to be shined a light on, and would, not in the Nick Kyrgios sort of way, but sort of, because of their, just being like Freddie Flintoff being just, Freddie Flintoff. Is there somebody in the pickleball world who's like that? It can help grow the sport just off their personality?
I tell you what, that we are quite lucky in the fact that there are some of the younger players do have good personalities who are helping grow the game. We've got one of them in one of our teams, a guy called James Lofthouse. He's got, when he plays, lots of things happen and it is entertaining, but he's such a good guy. But we've actually sadly lost one of them to Australia. There was a guy called Jack McGregor, who was a Scottish international badminton player who came to, I think he was top 100 in the world, came in to play pickleball and obviously became really good at it because he's just a naturally annoyingly talented sportsman. But then he's gone off to coach the Australian national badminton team. So he's the sort of guy that was great for it, because again, when Jack played, there was always something happening. It drew your eyes to it. In cricket, there's that phrase of like, he's a batsman that would empty the bars because people would go away from having the pint and they want to go and watch him, that batsman bat. it was the same with someone like Jack when they're playing. Same with Lofty as well. So people like that. And I think you can't fake it. You can't become a personality. But if you have got that personality on court, it's okay to show it. And I think that's the same for any sport. Don't feel like you got to keep yourself in and be restricted. Let it all come out, because that is the sort of thing that gets people talking and gets people interested.
And then last one is what's the biggest opportunity pickleball hasn't taken yet?
Oh, tell you what, you want that to be a quick fire question?
Well,
what's the biggest opportunity that pickleball hasn't taken yet? I think it's to accept it's a quirky sport, and for it to be okay to own that a lot more, and not try and be another version of tennis, not to try and be another traditional racket sport. Own the fact. I mean, I know I was joking at the start where we called it a stupid name. We've given it a really complex scoring system that nobody understands for at least the first 3 months, etc., etc., etc. Own that and lean into that a little bit more to make it a bit more niche, to make it a bit more quirky. I actually think pickleball would be surprised by its results if it did actually play up to that just a little bit more, and for it not to have to be broadcast exactly the same way as the tennis is broadcast, etc., 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 etc. I mean, look, darts is, I'm not saying pickleball should be darts, but darts is a very, very non-watchable sport. You unless you are right there, you struggle to see where the dart has gone, etc., etc. Unless you've got incredibly quick maths yourself, you're going to struggle to keep up if there's not like a proper announcer. Darts has done an amazing job of making itself so TV watchable that people love it. And yeah, I'm not saying that pickleball has to copy that, but it should lean into its quirkiness a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, no, but like you say, darts is a great pub game, and you go to the end of the events, and it is one colossal bar with a dartboard.
Yeah,
with somebody letting you know the scores and the tallies,
and I would wager that if you compare the athletes to the vast majority of people that are playing pickleball, they're not that dissimilar in many, many ways. And that is a positive thing, because top level entertaining pickleball doesn't have to be played by just the young, fit superstars. There is a place for all people in different walks of life, because it is a sport that, a bit like your example there with the table tennis player that didn't look like she'd be able to stand up, let alone play. You got people like that on a pickleball court who are, I mean, seriously good. And that's the inspiration, because not everyone can be 21 again and train and be fit and this, that, and the other. But a lot of people can look at some of these other quirky characters playing the sport and be inspired by them. So maybe there should be a bit of focus on that, as well as just the let's make it look like tennis brigade as well.
Well, thank you very, very much for your time, Chris. You've been very generous. And I'm probably I usually say to people, oh yeah, I'll see you soon, or we'll speak soon. I probably will actually genuinely see you very soon.
Yeah, we should get on court. Yeah.
So yes, so I will see you soon, and you take care.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sean. It's been great fun.
You too. Take care. Bye. And that was Chris Beaumont, founder of the World Pickleball Magazine. A really interesting look at where pickleball is right now, where it could go next, and where its biggest opportunities are. Again, a big thank you to our sponsors, ACC Leisure, who are helping secure the future of leisure within the UK, whether you have a sports hall, squash court, pickleball as well. Give them a call and the team will be more than happy to help you. And to Oliver UK, racket pioneer since 1938. If you are playing pickleball, they have a brand new racket out called the Crusher A1, a fantastic piece of kit, and their new top of the range model as well. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you follow, like, subscribe wherever you found us, and share it with somebody who you think could enjoy it too. And next week, we speak to Spencer Lovejoy, founder of the NSL, a radical new format in squash that is taking off and growing every single year. Until next time, take care.